Everyone, I hope you are all having a wonderful day. Today is going to be all about colored pencils and how you can use it in your art journal. I'm going to walk you through the creation of some faces and overall basically make your work have this emotional pull. I find it for me personally when I use only one art supply in my artwork, it just seems flat. But if I start using things like colored pencil, it makes it pop and brings it to life a bit more. It just makes it stand out more. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. Before we jump into the drawing part of things, I did want to mention that I have a book on how to draw faces. So if you're looking for a workbook on how to draw simple and easy faces in a whimsical way, I have two different books, and I will leave a link in the description to my ebooks that are downloadable workbooks for drawing faces. I love colored pencils just because it's another way to add layers to your artwork. And today I'm going to talk about my three favorite brands. My three favorite brands of colored pencils are the Faber-Castell Polychromos, which are oil-based. Then it's the Artex colored pencils, which are wax-based, and the Prisma Premier, which are also wax-based. I actually have Prisma Scholar colored pencils too, and I find they work just as well. For what I'm doing, I need a colored pencil that's going to lay down smoothly over different art materials that I have on the paper. So if I'm using it over gouache, if I'm using it over acrylic marker or watercolor, I need something that is going to be buttery smooth over my artwork that I've already put down on the paper. And these three brands are my favorite. If I have a number one brand, it is definitely the Faber-Castell Polychromos, but the Artex are a close second. I have more of those two brands than I do of the Prismacolor, but the Prismacolor are just as good. I've collected mine over the years. I also have the Derwent Color Soft colored pencils that you see me using here. And they're nice colored pencils, and I think they're perfect if you're using them for blending or creating realism. They're a little more, I would say, powdery, or they remind me of pastels. It's that scratchy feeling when you're working on your artwork. So those ones are not my first choice just because of the feel of it. I definitely think we all have our preferences when it comes to holding a pencil of any kind and how it flows over the paper. So that scratchiness of the Color Soft is not for me, although I do know it is for people who are doing realism. People just seem to love that blending ability of the Derwent Color Soft colored pencil, while I prefer that waxy, layered look of the other three brands. One of my favorite ways to start a page of my sketchbook is to grab a colored pencil. Usually I'll do like a bright pink or a yellow, but it doesn't show up on the video very well. And I'll draw a face just with a colored pencil. And you're not thinking about the face, okay? You're not really thinking too much about where the eyes, nose, and mouth go. You're just sort of throwing it out there because once you get that sort of outline of the face or whatever it is you're going to draw, then you're just going to go a little stir crazy with your colored pencils. You don't want everything to make sense, and you want to just go with however you feel, meaning just pick whatever colors you feel like picking. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to, you don't have to shade it properly. I literally like to give this lady some blue hair and just loving this beautiful purpley pink color. And if you notice, I'm using the side of my colored pencil and I'm making these really wild scratchy marks. That's the whole point. Once I got into it, then I just start like filling up the page with this color. So you're not just learning about layering and mark making and all of that in your art journal. You're also really, one of the things I like to say is you're really playing with color, texture, patterns. And that's, once I hit that pink around her face, that's when everything went a little wild. I even did this like orange cheek color with the Artex colored pencil. And I just love the way that orange and pink sort of pop off the page. I really do find that the three brands that I mentioned work really well together and are interchangeable for what I do. And you can add anything on top of these colored pencils, and you can add these colored pencils on top of anything. They work really well with the mixed media. Once I get all those colors and scratchy marks in and layer the colors that I like, I go back in with a black marker. This one is a Faber-Castell black acrylic marker, and I'm just making those eyes pop before I go over it again. So for me, when it comes to mixed media, I'm not just sticking to the colored pencils. I'm either starting with colored pencils, or in the middle of my drawing, I'm adding colored pencils, or at the end of a painting, I'm mark making with colored pencils. And so you can see here, I started and created this whole drawing with the colored pencils, and now I'm going over it with the acrylic markers, adding a crown and whatever things just I feel like doing. So I'm kind of in that flow state and really enjoying these little marks and patterns and fine-tuning this drawing. And I do love those blocks of it's pink, blue, and green that I feel like really pop off this page. You can either use color pencil to map out, draw, and create. You can use it as part of the process after you've laid down some paint or marker. But either way, it just really has this nice line work that you can include in your artwork. Now that I've mapped out my face in the colored pencil, I could use watercolor, gouache, marker on this and really bring it to life. If I'm using watercolor, gouache, or marker, I can then go back over it again with the colored pencil. I've decided to go over this lady's face with the gouache, but if you're using any of the materials that I mentioned, which is the gouache, the watercolor, or acrylic marker specifically, not so much acrylic paint, they're all sort of a matte finish, which means it's so much easier to add colored pencil once again on top after you color this all in. So I added some gouache, now I'm adding some acrylic markers and just playing around with this lady's face. And I'm not thinking a whole lot because I'm adding grass there and a sky behind her. I'm not really sure why. But then you can see that once this dries, I go back in with the colored pencil once again. Experimentation in your sketchbook or art journal is extremely important to discovering more about the products that you're using and different ways that you can use them. The only way that I have learned this over the years is from trial and error, really, and knowing what I enjoy. Like I enjoy the colored pencils that are more of a waxy or creamy feel versus the scratchiness of the Derwent's colored pencil. I learned that I don't like blending things. I also learned that I just like scribbling my colored pencil wherever I feel like it. And I think that's something I learned. I really enjoyed that intuitive process, which ultimately doesn't make any sense, especially if you're the type of artist that likes to, I guess, be linear with your artwork. You start, you actually have a whole process from start to finish, where my process is just like I'm throwing everything onto the page and just playing around and seeing what evolves. I really think that everyone's brain works differently in a way. And for me, when it comes to the creative process, the only way that I enjoy it is if I'm not trying and if I'm just playing around and seeing what happens. That's the only way that I find joy in the creative process. These two ladies were so much fun to draw. The lady on the left was more of a challenge. Her face was a little odd. But again, for me, I am scribbling some colored pencil on here. So this was drawn with a marker, acrylic marker, and then colored with acrylic paint. And now I'm going in with colored pencils and playing around. When it comes to a sketchbook spread, I do like to have the same colors on both sides to bring it together. These ladies go together because of the colors that I'm bringing and also the patterns. So you can see the patterns in their dresses are very similar. So it makes it work even if the faces are wonky and weird. I think when it comes to mixed media art journals, colored pencils are a big win. If you have a very small journal or you're, heading out or you don't have a lot of space in your art studio, then colored pencils are really the way to go. You can have so much fun. You don't need a paintbrush and paint. I personally love a paintbrush and paint, and I love gouache more than I love watercolor, but there is really something really satisfying about using colored pencils on top of the work that you do. And here I am again, scratching in, seeing what more I can layer on top. So if you layer colored pencils that are like a waxy finish, then at some point you can't really add more on top of it because it just starts scratching away what you've already done. So you could see me here having this pencil on the side and seeing what more I can add to these two ladies to sort of bring it together. But again, colored pencils are a fantastic way to quickly add mark making, color, and just depth to your art journal pages. I just love how these three, I forgot about that one, these three turned out. And then the final one that I'm going to show you is how I walk through doing a landscape and some other ladies' faces. And then I'm going to show you some previous artwork that I did where I add color pencil. I have some faces that I'm not quite finished where I added color pencil, but you can also add color pencil. For example, here, Adding colored pencil on top of artwork that you've already done is just a great way, like I said, to add some dimension. So I might take a little green here and I can add patterns. I could just sort of go around the outside of this lady and basically try to make her stand out a bit more. And one of the other things I like to do is pick another color. So I'll put like this dark green around her head. And then maybe I'll pick like a teal color, if I could find a nice, I love teal, but I don't know if I'm going to find it. Maybe this color, I probably want something lighter than this. I feel like it's too similar. But look how easy it goes over. And just by layering, there we go, a few different colors on top of what you've already done, it can bring it to life a little bit more. And maybe I'll want to add a different pink to her cheeks. Let's see if I could find something a little bit different. I'm reaching for the Artex here, but like maybe I'll want to highlight her cheeks a bit more. And maybe a bit of a darker blue. Don't be afraid in your teeny tiny sketchbook or any sketchbook to play around with color and layering on different colors, because ultimately it's all about exploring your own style and discovering what art supplies you like best. And honestly, I don't think I would have realized how much I like the Artex and the Faber-Castell if I didn't use it in my art journals and drawing books. In my art journals and mixed media sketchbooks. One of the things I like about this tiny sketchbook art too is you can go over all your old stuff, you know, and play around with it a bit and explore a bit more how your art supplies work. Like, I'm just not committed to keeping everything the same after I do it. Sometimes I'll just be like, oh, I wonder how this, you know, idea would work or that idea would work. Instead of starting from scratch, you have all these little sketchbooks that you can sort of go through and see what you can do. Now this page I've gone over so many times that I'm actually starting to get the paint off. But like, for example, with this one, I might explore adding like some darker purple, or maybe add a nice sort of pink to the mix. And what would that look like? So colored pencils for me are mark making, exploration of layering and color mixing, and overall determining which art supplies I like the best. Got to play around with them. That's so much fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial on how I use colored pencils in my art journal pages. I just love how this page turned out. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.